Hello everybody and welcome to Tech from Zero. In this video, I'll be sharing with you how I earned my very first AWS foundational certification from the first attempt and with no previous knowledge of IT. So without further ado, let's jump into step number one. The first thing I did was attend an AWS webinar. Now, this webinar is delivered by AWS through one of their experts who will then send you the slides and other required materials for the exam. Now, unfortunately, you won't be able to have the webinar recording as it is not allowed by AWS rules. Despite its lengthy duration, this webinar has a lot to offer as it covers all exam requirements, mainly walking you through all the AWS services. Attending this online lecture helped me save lots of time by setting the outset of my journey, from which I got to know what material to study and what to Google for. You can access the wide range of free webinars and courses offered directly by AWS or their partner companies through their training website. If you haven't yet partnered with AWS, you can log in with your Amazon account or create one if you haven't got one. Also, it's worth downloading the AWS overview and keeping it as a reference in case you feel you need to know more about one of the services you didn't understand well. The second source I used was a platform called A Cloud Guru. Now, this platform offers a comprehensive course for practitioners with a range of practice exams at the end to help you get familiar with the real exam. I recommend you watch the videos at your own pace and go through the quizzes at the end of each section to help yourself build the knowledge required and gain more confidence. And don't be afraid to fail your quizzes as you're allowed to repeat as much as you want. And in this way, you will learn from your mistakes and lock in the correct answers in your brain. Another advantage A Cloud Guru offers is the hands-on lab, which helps you navigate through the AWS platform and use its services. Through this lab, you will have access to a virtual account as if you're a real AWS user, and instructional videos will guide you throughout your journey. Although the exam is a multiple choice, I highly recommend you go through these labs as it triples your knowledge of AWS functionality by showing you how to locate and launch certain services that you are learning about and will be using in the future. This doubled my self-confidence and widened my perception of AWS services. Note that A Cloud Guru is not free. There are subscription fees for different plans. However, if you're invested in AWS, then it's definitely worth subscribing. Now, of course, there are also other valuable options. However, these two were enough for me to focus on and pass my certification exam. So now that you know where to study, let's go to the second tip, which is to Google new terms. Since some words got different meaning in the real world, it's necessary to identify what do they mean in cloud computing. A trivial example is cloud itself. The word cloud, which no need to explain what it means. However, in cloud computing, it's definitely not the one up there. The cloud is down on Earth, and it refers to the servers used to store our data. Another term you'll always come across is instance. In the real world, it may refer to an example of something. However, in cloud computing, it refers to a virtual server. The same goes for server, packet, package, and so on. Which brings us to tip number 3, relate specific terms to each AWS service. This lifted my ability to remember the function of each AWS service. So when you go to review, which I usually do one day before any exam, you will be able to save lots of time and energy using this effortless technique, which keeps your mind fresh and ready. So instead of reading the whole definition again and again, do this simple mapping: CloudWatch, monitor resources, CloudTrail, track user activity. Same goes for EC2, which has to do with compute, processing, many apps, dynamic websites, and this is while comparing it to S3 which is an AWS service that has to do with storage, size. Also, you can add static websites. Tip number 4, create your own abbreviations. If you're the type of person who takes handwritten notes, which is my case, it's a great idea to use your own short terms. Now, this technique might not save you lots of time, but it will definitely contribute to the great mood you started studying with. We all know how boring it is to write long words again and again and again. Examples of frequent words you will see: resources, business, public, private. So it's a great idea to use these shortcuts. Also, servers and services. I add a V only for servers, and a good practice is to add an S after the dot to denote that this term is plural. I suggest you create a list of these, which will serve as your nomenclature on a separate sheet, and keep it on your desk for your review time in case you forget what any of your terms refer to. Which brings us to tip number 5. Watch out not to confuse your own terms with those defined already by AWS. Now, this won't happen with your abbreviations. However, if you're creating your own acronyms, same as I did, then you may fall into this. So make sure to add more letters or dots when necessary. Now, I only encountered this with EBS and WAF. So using the same acronym for Elastic Beanstalk caused a little headache, and I had to rewire my brain on this by going again through each of these terms. Same is true for WAF, which is already defined by AWS as Web Application Firewall and has nothing to do with my WAF, which is Well Architected Framework. Now, don't worry much about it, but just consider it because it seems other people are making the same mistake. So that's all for today, folks. These are the 5 tips I applied to achieve my first AWS foundational certification with the least time possible from the first attempt. And I wanted to share them with you to help you also achieve your first certification from the first time, even if your background has nothing to do with IT. If you like this video, then smash this like button. If you have any other tips, then please share them in the comments to help others who are applying to get AWS certified. Thank you very much for watching, and see you in later videos.